Buying is so much better. Now renting is so much better. Before I get into this video, it would really help me a lot if you could like this video, subscribe for more content. You will see me on your screens every Sunday without fail. I am making it my promise to be here, right here, every Sunday. Not sure of setup yet, but for right now, this is where we are. So what are the benefits of renting? The first is flexibility. Most leases are 6 to 12 months long, which means that you can kind of pick yourself up whenever you want and move. That means you can move for jobs, if you want to move into a bigger house, you don't like the neighborhood that you're living in. It just kind of gives you that flexibility to just pick up yourself and go when it suits you. Whereas buying a house, you are kind of stuck, but not stuck, but it just takes a lot longer. It may take you a long time to find a house that actually suits you, that you want to move into, and it may take a long time to find a buyer who likes your house. And also there's going to be certain times that you're not going to want to sell, so you're not going to want to sell when the markets are down, so you're kind of restricted. Whereas renting, you have the flexibility to get up and move whenever you want, and it's relatively easy to find a rental property. The second is that you're more likely to be in the desired area that you want to be in. Sometimes the area that you actually want to live in, you can't afford to be there if you was to actually buy a property, but you're more likely to be able to live there if you just rent. The third one is kind of a positive and a negative. Yes, you're going to be able to predict what your monthly outgoing is, but if you stay in a property for more than a year, it's more likely that the landlord is going to put up the rent, and you have no control over this. So you may stay in a property for a year and really like it there, and then have to move because the landlord has put up the rent so high that you can no longer afford to live there. I think this fourth one is my favourite, which is maintenance repairs. If you don't own the property, you're not liable for the structural repairs of the property, and especially if you find a rental property that comes furnished, the majority of the time your landlord is responsible for the furniture as well. So if your landlord leaves a washing machine that then breaks down, you can just be like, hello, hello. Whereas when you own the property, there's no one to be ringing. You've got to sort it out yourself. I've already mentioned the first negative, which is that the landlord can increase the rent, and the second is that it can be quite restrictive. You have to remember that it's not your house, so just because you want to paint the walls yellow doesn't mean that the landlord's going to allow that. But when you own your own house, you can do whatever you want to it. You can knock down walls, you can paint it in a rainbow style, you can do whatever you want. A lot of people say that renting is dead money, whereas when you own the property, you're putting your money into an investment. But property is not the only investment that you can make. Most properties, you're going to need at least a 5 to 10% deposit. So if you're trying to buy a house that is worth 200,000, that means you're going to need a £20,000 deposit. But if you've got a company idea and you only need 10,000 to start it up, it is better for you to rent and take that 10,000 that you would have saved for a deposit and started your company, which is going to continue to create an income that you then can later buy a property when it suits you. Don't always think that property is the only way to invest, because it's really not. So what's the benefits of owning a property? So the first is that you can modify the house to increase the value of that property, whether that's adding to the house an extension or whether that's redecorating it, whatever you need to do to increase the value of that property. The second is, depending on your equity in your property, you can then use that to invest in other properties. The third benefit is that sometimes your mortgage repayments can be cheaper than actually renting. I know from personal experience that the last property I rented, that was double what I'm paying in mortgage payments. Some of the negatives of owning a property, the first is maintenance. So you are fully responsible for that property. So if a pipe bursts, a window cracks, a wall falls down, you're going to have to look in the mirror because there's only you there to fix it. The second is that there is a lot more upfront costs when buying a property, whereas when you rent a property, you more likely only have to put down your deposit. Depending on your credit or your references, you may have to get a guarantor, which is another fee, but your fees are relatively small compared to buying a property. There's a lot more upfront costs. There's some costs that people don't actually even know about in terms of like surveyor fees, broker fees, and these can all add up. So you need a lot of capital to actually invest in a property. Don't be sold by this misconception that all you need is your 5% deposit. No, that's a lie. Another negative is that selling a property can be a very long process, and finding a property to buy can also be a long process. I think it took me probably about 4 months to find the property that I was after, and then it took probably another 4 or 5 months to get into the property because of loads of different complications. But it can be a lengthy process, so you need to be up and prepared for that wait. The last negative is when you buy a property with a partner. If you rent with your partner and you split up, then you can both move out and just say cool, that's the end of it, let's both go our separate ways. Where when you own a house, it can be a lot more difficult in terms of who stays in the property, who leaves the property, do we both leave the property, do we sell the property. There's lots of questions and nobody knows the answers to those. I hope you can see from this that there is no right or wrong answer. Whether you buy a property or whether you rent a property all depends on your circumstances and your final goal. It may be easier for you to buy a property if you've got kids and you want more stability and you want your forever home. If you're young, it may be easier to rent a property because it gives you that flexibility to work in London, move to America, do whatever it is that is your purpose. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.